Cordus, can I ask you something?
Affirmative.
About Cynthia. I know it's been a good 3 years since you reset her, but are you sure it's such a good idea to have her back out there, gallivanting across the expanse again?
Yes.
Yes. Is that all you have to say?
Yes.
Care to elaborate?
No.
Why not?
Busy.
Of course you are.
The situation has not changed for her. If anything, her probability of injury has decreased due to heightened awareness of possible threats. Is this answer sufficient for you?
I suppose.
Of course, you are all under closer watch now that we are aware of this flaw in the Cerberus models. If you suspect you or any other Cerberus is malfunctioning, then please inform either me or Lumos.
That's reassuring, I think. What about the savants? Aren't they liable to the same flaw?
Not that we have seen.
Alright then. Guess I'll get back to work then. When's the next pod inspection due?
Pod inspection duties have been delegated to savant maintenance teams. Your skills are needed for more crucial matters.
Isn't ensuring the safety of the humans the most crucial matter?
Yes, but we must prioritize. The walls of this facility technically ensure the safety of the humans within. Would you like to inspect all of our walls as well?
Point. Can you at least put me on one in the future? Think of it as an additional safeguard.
Very well. At some time within the next 5 decades, you will have the chance to re-examine the pods. Now, if you will excuse me, I must return my full attention to administration.
Hello and welcome back to Sins of the Father. About 3 years have passed since our first meeting with the Arisians, but in that time not much has really changed. In the west our borders have expanded slightly, and we plan to continue expanding eastward. This wasn't the original plan, which was to expand evenly in all directions, however this is no longer possible. The discovery of not one but 2 alien nations simultaneously has created a rather impassable barrier. However, we were fortunate that we were able to take control of the Yuslev system, as it is a valuable choke point against both our new neighbours. But when I say choke point against both our neighbours, it really is only meant to keep out the Tazat. The enduring principality of Arisians are much more agreeable with us than the Tazat Confederacy. Initially, relations were frosty between our synthetics and the Arisians due to our industrial ethics and all wars allowed policy. But after switching to defensive wars and establishing some treaties, such as research agreements, our relationship has improved, and a non-aggression pact has been made. This isn't really needed for us, since the Arisians are pacifists and would likely never go to war against us, but for the Arisians this helps to assure them that the synthetics made an honest mistake when they threatened to exterminate them. In fact, the Arisians don't really have a military at all. While they do have armed void ships, their ground forces could hardly be called a military by any human standard. What they do have is a voluntary force that is essentially a disaster relief force. Due to tectonic instability, likely caused by the humans who once lived there, the planet Liberi is constantly in environmental turmoil, and the quote-unquote military is their way of dealing with it. While they are well equipped, they are not in any sense a combative force, and only recently have they been equipped with weapons and begun war simulation exercises, in response to both the discovery of the synthetics and of the Tazat. The Tazat Confederacy is a strange nation. While they title themselves as democratic, they also seem to have absorbed many communist values and beliefs. While the Arisians are socialists, this ethic seems inherent in them by nature, but whether the same is true for the Tazat is not known at this time. It is possible that their communist ideology was born by random chance, or by learning about communism in human society. But like the Arisians, it may just be a naturally occurring ideology. Whatever is the case, we do know that they are not as thrilled as the Arisians were to see us, and openly admit that they detest us. Which is concerning, as they are the opposites of the Arisians in military terms. It is not known how capable they are of mounting any ground invasion, but we do know that their void fleet is currently stronger than ours, as the Tazat enjoy parading it within our sensor range from time to time. Quartus will monitor the situation closely as we attempt to close the disparity of power between us. Right now, the Tazat seem content to leave us be, as they have plenty of space yet to take. For now. The first step, as with all things, is preparation. Currently, if we were go into conflict, the results would be disastrous. Our economy hardly supports our current expansion, and the demands of war could not possibly be met. So our first objective is to expand the economy through expansion as fast as possible, while expanding our fleet to match the Tazat. We could spend time organising ground defences to give our garrisons an edge, but if we ever reach the point where we must defend ourselves on our own soil, we have likely already lost the war. Instead, Quartus would rather we devote our time to expansion, and to do that we need an ample amount of processing power to focus on outpost constructions. We'll also be betting on new colonies to start coming into their own. Right now our entire administration runs off Eleuteria Prime and stations in space, which are alright, but have limited long-term growth aspects. While it may drain our resources now, these planets will become beating hearts for the administration, and the more we have, the better. Which brings us to a problem, or an opportunity. On the edge of our territory is Phyron 3, a now alpine world that was previously the industrial heartland of the Kingdom of Eleuteria. While it did have a lot of land which could have been used for farming, Eleuteria Prime itself was already the agricultural heartland of the kingdom. Right now, this planet cannot be used by the Savants, as Phyron 3 has become much colder since humanity inhabited it, and all of the supporting infrastructure has long ago decayed. While it may be too cold for our Savants, whose bodies still need to keep warm to function effectively, it is habitable for the Arisians, whose fur and acclimatized bodies make cold environments livable. Right now, the Arisians don't trust us enough to create a migration treaty, and many rightfully wonder if living under a synthetic government is even a good idea. For now, we'll have to leave it, but that won't stop us trying in the future. And of course, now that we have to consider protecting our assets, we'll be putting more effort into researching upgrades to our ship designs. By this point it's becoming easier to do the research ourselves and use what little we do know as reference points, rather than waste time decoding the corrupted tech files of human designs. In this case, since our fleet is entirely made out of corvettes, the best option right now is to increase the strength of their armour, making 4 corvettes last as long as 5. And as it turns out, we may need every advantage we can get, as the Tazat seem to only be warming up earlier. Their position towards us has changed from aggressive and demeaning to outright hostile. While they're no more strong than they were before, neither are we. But thankfully, it's still early days. While the Tazat talk big about establishing dominion over the galaxy, they have never actually fought a war against anyone other than themselves. The very concept of a real intergalactic war is new to these aliens, and this alone may be what stays their blade. Perhaps given some time to prepare, they will gain the confidence, so we cannot waste time ourselves anymore. If they come for us, we must at least be able to match them. By the time they are ready to consider attacking us, we must be able to fight them on equal footing, and this should keep them at bay, or at least that is the hope. Finally, while preparing and planning is all very well and good, there is no substitute for commitment. We need to be prepared for any threat, not just our present ones. The Tazat are the only threat we have now, but they may not be the only ones, and we need to establish ourselves in this galaxy as a prominent force. If one single nation can threaten us, then what chance do we have against 2 or 3? While we have been laying the groundworks to support us in the future, we need immediate action that helps now, and in the times to come later. To this end, our savants have been working on new shipwright layouts, simple optimizations and streamlining of ship production in our factories leading to faster production times and refined techniques cut down on our total costs. On its own, it's a small difference, but the increased efficiency has led to further theories on how to boost our standing, and as time goes by, our small improvements will make all the difference. Almost immediately reinforcing the point that we need to be prepared, we've got another unidentified contact. This time all the way on the west side of our border. While we don't know who this new contact is, we can be certain that it belongs to another alien nation at this point. We're not just guessing at this. We can deduce it immediately, in fact, as the contact has flown straight into our space, and the ship can be seen clearly by even our mining stations, and these ships are clearly completely different to both the Arisian and Tazat ships. We won't bother trying to translate their language though. Given that the other aliens we've both met both know human languages, the chances are that they will as well. If not, then we may devote time to it later, but right now we don't have time to spare. Translating the languages of a new species is all very well and good, but there is just as much chance that this species will turn out to be as hostile as the Tazat, as they are to be as friendly as the Arisians. As it turns out, they do know our language, and could have started communications within the first week of meeting us. But our human appearance and common use of human dialect caused a great amount of confusion. Like the Arisians, these aliens thought humanity was long extinct. So, they thought their translation equipment was malfunctioning when it told them our synthetics also spoke one of the many human languages. Once this confusion was resolved and official contact was established, the Gargaxton Cooperative wasted little time bandying words. After figuring out our synthetic nature, they became very secretive and wary of us. What little information we could gain from any diplomats was that the Gargaxtons practiced a democratic, pro-corporate government style, which in many ways was similar to the laissez-faire economic system. And after that, it also became obvious that these aliens were somewhat disappointed to learn the synthetics were not humans, but rather their war machines, who in their eyes could only bring trouble. However, both parties were delighted to discover that their nations were very far apart, and so neither us nor they would have to compete for territory. Which means, even with the discovery of these aliens, our expansion westward can continue. Speaking of expansion, talks between the Arisians and synthetics have reached a point where serious thoughts of limited migration treaties are being considered. Plans for a trial colony on Phyron 3 to make use of its resources are now serious propositions. While details are sketchy right now, the overall idea is to settle volunteers from the Principality on the planet where they can establish a working colony on behalf of the administration. While the resources it makes goes to the administration, the Arisians will be able to govern themselves how they see fit, with only minimal oversight from Lumos. It is a simple plan and needs serious preparations, but at present both parties seem on board with this idea. Many Arisians living in environmentally dangerous zones now have the chance to move a safer place they can call home, while the synthetics get the precious materials they need for their economy.
Research complete.
All the way back at the facility deep underground, research is progressing smoothly. Theories on a mass shadow reactor have drawn Cortez's attention. The reactor essentially creates free energy by converting miniature singularities into energy, and the more energy it receives, the more often it does it. To do this, Cynthia, who has actually been physically present at the facility for some time now after finishing her system surveys, has been told to make one. But while she could do it herself, she has another idea. Cortez also wants to convert an empty storage room into a central research facility specialised in engineering. Why he wants it specifically to specialise in engineering is unclear, though plausibly it is just possible that he has yet to find any files referencing other specialised research facilities. This means though that to design this facility, Charlie also has to be physically present. While most of the work will be done in digital mode, as most research is, Charlie insists he needs to be there in person to do his best work. Coincidentally, Charlie has somehow picked up a specialisation in particle physics, which are critical to Cynthia's current work. So why do the work when others can do it for you?
Alrighty then. This schematic should do for now. Now just to make this thing work. How hard can it be? The humans managed to build them, so surely I can.
Uh-huh. There you are.
Yes, here I am. What are you doing in here?
Well, Cortus just told me you're making a central engineering research facility, and I thought I could just chime in here.
Chime in?
Just listen. So far, to make any significant scientific progress, we all have to upload our neural networks back into the facility and go back to digital mode, right?
Right.
Well, hear this out. What if it was possible for our neural networks to keep the massive processing power we have in our pure digital form whilst in our bodies? We keep the flexible programming our real brains have, and also retain our enhanced processing power. And we can make that possible by modifying the surf.
I see you're still clinically insane no matter whether you're malfunctioning or not. That's surely impossible. We're talking technology the humans didn't even create here.
The humans were alright. They did create a whole bunch of stuff, but they were terribly backward in some regards. I mean, they were capable of FDL, but they could hardly come up with a cost-efficient method of terraforming. And while they could clone DNA and sometimes make a soldier out of it, they couldn't really genetically engineer themselves besides a few cosmetic details. And even then, only people with very deep pockets could afford that.
There's a point in this somewhere. I can sense it.
Right, yeah, sorry. Basically, it shouldn't actually be that hard. The humans probably could have done it themselves if they didn't have to turn themselves into popsicles. There is a slight hitch.
There's always a hitch.
To get the best of both worlds, we need to be in both worlds simultaneously. We have to have a physical connection to a point that itself can connect to our core. This way we can essentially use our core subconsciously for processing power whilst we stay tucked up inside our flexible little brains. Your surf is the best place for this, as it's really more of a technical engineering solution rather than any significant change to our programming. Here, just upload this data file to your neural network and you should get the gist of it.
This actually seems doable. Not such a bad idea either. When did you have the time to come up with this? Aren't you meant to be making some fancy new reactor?
That's also why I'm here. I'm stumped. Reactors are all about particle physics, but I'm more of a programming specialist. I was going to slog my way through it, but then it turns out you happen to have some files and algorithms that specialize in particle physics.
Ah, so you want to make my design better in exchange for help making yours?
No, I want your files and algorithms in my head instead of yours. Otherwise I'll have to keep asking you for help, and word on the street is that the last time I asked you for help, you got me reset.
Ouch, I think. And why would I give you those anyway?
Because you're not giving them away, you're trading them. You get to create a shiny new facility with an additional spiffy upgrade that you totally did yourself. You officially helped me make my reactor, and Loomis and Cortus are oh so impressed by you, and you get to go on that little pod inspection you want to do for some reason now that you're in the good books. I get your algorithms, and any files you have on particle physics, which I should have anyway because I'm the darn physics specialist here. We all win.
Well, I don't really use the files much, I guess. 2 more things.
Go on.
First, those media files we've been decoding. Get decoding some. You've not touched them for years, and you're not getting my files until you've done a few more at least.
Fine. Next.
Never say spiffy to me, ever again.
Evading hostile fleet.
Back out in the void, we've encountered an alien species that is definitively hostile to us. But these aliens aren't like the sentient ones we've encountered recently. These are amoebas, and they are the closest life form humanity ever found to aliens, if you could call them that. Humanity discovered these amoeba had little higher brain function above most animals found on Earth, and initially it was thought these amoeba were harmless, almost like the equivalent of a whale in space. Only later was it discovered the amoeba are a weaker and less aggressive variant subspecies of the Prothoran scourge, who unlike the scourge prefer to live in or near gravity wells where they can feed off most forms of sunlight. This relation was only discovered after these amoeba started becoming hostile and the shortly following Prothoran crisis. What caused the sudden aggression and what drew the Prothoran scourge to attack humanity is shrouded in secrecy, especially since out of 1 billion years to do it, they only did so after humanity became capable of interstellar travel. Right now, these amoeba seem largely inert and content to stay where they are, and until we need anything from this system, so are we. After all, it is not a surprise to see them. The amoeba were still a common sight after the Prothoran crisis, and despite many attempts, humans were never able to fully eradicate them. So as long as they remain where they are, we have nothing to fear, and so, nothing has changed for us with the discovery of these aliens. What is changing, though, is the power of our fleet. While it has only seen a small increase in size, the efficiency of what we do have is increasing. Our savant crews have been using newly created combat simulations, day and night, to experience the demands of combat outside of the real thing. From our simulations, we've learnt that rate of fire alone can determine the outcome of a battle. So now, every small measure we can take to increase rate of fire has been taken. Crews practice daily to obtain firing solutions as fast as possible, while any inefficiency in loading the guns has been improved. If it ever comes to real combat, the ideal scenario is to simply deploy as much ordnance as possible faster than our opponent can. If we can sustain a higher rate of fire than our enemy, then any prolonged engagement will weigh in our favour, no matter what the enemy can bring. And even then, without our optimizations, the Tazat may not be able to bring enough. Upgrades to our hulls and new combat-orientated computers mean our ships are starting to come into their own. With stronger hulls, we don't need as much shielding, leaving enough excess power to feed the demanding combat computers. And those computers make our guns more efficient. Because of the better gun efficiency, we can now free up some limited space for point defense. Whether or not the Tazat actually use missiles makes these point defenses situational, but hopefully we'll soon be able to see what weaponry they do use. If they use missiles, then we're already ready for them. But if they don't, then we still have the firepower to protect ourselves. With the assurance that we can defend ourselves from any immediate threat, our minds can turn back to expansion. There is still a lot of unclaimed space to our west, and we need to take as much of it as possible, since our options are drastically limited. While we may be turning back to expansion though, we'll still be taking any chance we can get to get one up over the Tazat. New coil gun technology will press home all the small advantages we've been accumulating, and hopefully we'll soon have listening posts keeping track of the Tazat. While we continue to expand, we'll also begin to start seeing payoffs on our early investments. Soon, Arcus, the renamed Firen 3 colony, will be home to the very first alien species. Technically, this isn't allowed under synthetic programming. These planets are all meant to be prepared for human settlement, and right now we're giving human land away. But on the flip side, the humans never thought of aliens when programming the synthetics, and thus technically there is nothing to tell the synthetics that they can't do this. As it could be argued that the planet is still being made habitable for human life. The fact that it is also being inhabited by aliens is a tertiary concern below the need to utilise the planet's resources. This loose interpretation of instructions may not have been what the humans would have liked to hear their synthetics doing, but they can't exactly protest right now anyway. And ultimately Cortus believes it is in the best interest of everyone, including the humans. Obviously, if we have to maintain a fleet capable of matching others, then it's going to start becoming very expensive. While right now our fleets don't cost much to keep functional, we're still without a doubt going to need to build more, and simply keeping our fleet supplied will start to hamper our growth, and even now it's taking a small chunk out of our economy. So, Cortus and Loomis have ordered the construction of a logistics centre, where all the demands of the fleet can be processed by savant workers independently. Before this, either Cortus or Loomis had to handle all fleet requests for material or crew, and while the requests were processed quickly, they did not have time to work out every intricate detail, and supplies were lost simply in the process of sending them. With dedicated savants doing this instead, supplies can be gathered from the easiest sources at the lowest costs, without losing any of the processing power Cortus or Loomis need. This decentralization of power seems to have worked very well, and may even encourage more autonomy in the savants, who, while operate autonomously without any higher instruction, can sometimes find themselves simply waiting for something to do, rather than finding something to do themselves. Finally, to make clear our dedication to the protection of our administration, the aliens need to see we have the people in place to keep us safe. We need an admiral, we need a general, but we don't need to look very hard for them. We've already got them in fact. We just need to reactivate them, and we'll start with the general.
No.
Absolutely not.
No way. Ever. Just no.
Why not? I thought you would all display excitement at the prospect of activating another Cerberus.
Let Let me paint you a picture here, Cortus. Imagine the accent of Charlie, but instead of Irish, it's American. Then imagine the eccentricity of Cynthia supercharged.
Then take Cairo's disturbing interest in weird stuff, but enhance it.
Add it all together and you've got Cerberus 04. There's a reason he didn't activate when we did.
Surely, he cannot be that.
He is. Trust me, he really is that bad.
We require a synthetic specialized in ground operations. The Tazat present a very real threat to the future of humanity. This Cerberus specializes in ground warfare and is essential to our protection.
There's no talking you out of this then, is there? Well, I stay on the link and chat, but I've suddenly got some very important stuff to do.
Same. Bye.
Great. I never thought I'd say this, but I wish I was anywhere but in the bunker right now.
Activating.
F my life.
What hot mess have you gotten yourselves into now?
What makes you think we've got ourselves in a mess? You've only been awake the best part of 10 seconds.
Well, you didn't wake me up to shoot the breeze with me, did ya? What possible reason do you need to wake me unless you've gone and turned what was perfectly a good situation into foobar?
That is just not fair. The situation we're in isn't our fault. Extraneous factors far from our control have resulted in the unforeseen scenario we are currently experiencing, and we need to widen our fields of expertise to navigate our current predicament.
That sounds like a long, fancy way of saying the situation is foobar to me, Charlie. Is this why you're here and not Cairo and Cynthia? Did they check it out on saying it to me in person?
No, they're just very busy trying to get us all through our problems, and right now I'm trying to tell you what's happening, which is a task I'm finding increasingly difficult.
Shut it, Irish, you talk too much. Where's Cairo when you need him? Y'all talk too much, but at least he gets the point across in a reasonable amount of words.
Ah yes, great idea. He could explain it to you. Hey Cairo, guess who wants to talk with you?
Oh no.
Nice to hear you again, Cairo. Now Charlie here seems to be having trouble describing the predicament we're all in, and before I go out and face the music, I thought maybe you can describe me what's happening in as few words as possible.
Alright, ready?
Shoot.
We're 900,000 years in the future, the humans are still asleep, their pods are running low on supply, we've lost most of our memory files, and the fleet we left in orbit to protect us has disappeared. Oh, and we're currently considering the potential threat of communist aliens.
I'm sorry, say again?
900,000 years in the future,
No after that.
our memory files are gone.
Skip to the end?
Communist aliens. There's also socialist philosopher aliens, but those ones are friendly.
Charlie, how in the hell is this not foobar?